Welcome to Those Canadian Lads. Here are your hosts, Geoff and Brad. Hard defines greatness. This is a retrospective of the last year, the pandemic's greatest hits from Those Canadian Lads. Through 2020 and now 2021, we are molding ourselves into something. I don't know what that is just yet. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a reptilian time traveler. Ha! The great ascension, my ass, you bloody kooks. Are we going to come out of this stronger? Like I said, hard defines greatness. So many things turned our lives upside down and spun it around and around and around and around. We've all been affected socially, economically, politically, and the list goes on and on. A year ago, I was in a boardroom. Can you believe it? I was in a boardroom with actual people sitting only feet away from each other. The theme of my presentation was hard defines greatness. On the first slide, I had election results. How is the Liberal minority government going to impact us in 2020? The oil crisis was increasing, and we knew things were going to get tougher. And lastly, I had a picture of a virus. We didn't know much about it then, but we knew we would be challenged, but we didn't know by how much. Hard defines greatness is hopefully the theme for our generation going forward, and that we come out stronger and better off as a society in Canada. A stronger team working together in the world to overcome our competition. Yes, we have competition out there, and there are no free rides. With that being said, episode 16 starts now. Welcome to the pandemic retrospective with Those Canadian Lads. Geoff, how you doing tonight?
I'm wonderful. And yourself, Brad?
I'm doing great.
Good. With your intro, I've realized that my talking points are not nearly hard enough or confident enough to lift this episode up. I'll tell you that much.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? We gotta get deep on this thing, man.
Apparently, I was gonna take this on a very superficial level, but no. Listen. I couldn't agree more. Hard defines greatness. It is the adversity in our lives that allow us to prove that we are strong, that we're great. And this is exactly one of those things. How are we going to come out of this and either rise above the challenges that we faced, or are we going to continuously lay on the mat? It's interesting.
You know what? The greatest teams, the greatest societies, they all face challenges ahead of them to make themselves greater. You don't learn by doing things great all the time. You learn by making mistakes and falling down along the way and learning from them. So our society, our who we are, are we going to take road A or are we going to take road B? Are we going to, be losers or are we going to be great? And that was the topic of the day today for Those Canadian Lads. Sort of catch you off guard there, Jeffrey.
Well, you told me that you had a good intro ready to go, and I think you even said you had 3 pages of notes to kind of compile it. So no, I'm impressed, and I know that I think back in January, or maybe it was even December, we were talking about year in review episodes and how are we going to talk about wrapping up how things come together. And admittedly, I was a little bit seesawish on it. It's kind of like, well, I don't necessarily want to do a year in review because everyone does a year in review. But I will say, like, we are coming up on not the year anniversary of COVID, obviously, but where things got very disrupted in our part of the world, where I think when you and I were discussing it yesterday, we're talking about how you had been to a hockey game the week leading up to it. And on the night of the shutdown, I was actually at the Oilers game with my brother. And then things went very sideways very quickly. So no, it timelines well. And, there is probably some reflection that needs to take place with this. So.
No, absolutely. With everything still going on and hopefully some light at the end of the tunnel, it's time to kind of talk a little bit about, the last year and hopefully, we see some some good stuff over the next couple months, especially around vaccinations, to allow us to get our lives back to normal. And I've got a little bit of a story on that as well, which we'll touch on a little later in regards to the vaccinations. But no, we should probably start the episode off tonight just with a few current events, because before we get into this deep dive on the pandemic retrospective here, there's been a lot of things going on here in the news lately, especially in Alberta and Canada, but specifically around some pretty interesting topics. So, Geoff, you brought up a few. One was the legislature this weekend. There was a group of fine individuals who made their way down to the legislature ground with some torches and some white supremacy.
Yeah, like obviously I was not there.
You weren't?
But
your parents were?
My parents were. I'll get into that, but it is one of those things. I will start this by saying that, like, I think that if you dedicate any time towards either these protests or the counter protests, you're a loser. How you spend your free time is up to you, but you're not making a difference. And quite frankly, if this was truly an anti-mask protest, which it could have been, who's to say what exactly was said on the ledge grounds there? But if this was an anti-mask protest, do you really think you're going to get the government to reverse pace because a bunch of people showed up at the grounds? This isn't the 70s with sit-ins, and we're not trying to get out of NOM or anything like that. It's not going to work. So, as I said, I think you're a loser for doing it. But I will say, before we get into my family's experience at the ledge grounds this weekend, it is funny. Like, when I saw the initial media coverage, I just thought it was just bunch of anti-mask people. And then they're like, oh, well, the tiki torches were out, and that's a sign of white nationalism. And I'm like, I'm going to start becoming very concerned about what I carry or what I wear in regards to it being a sign of white nationalism.
Yeah, you need to stop carrying that tiki torch around.
Yeah, I didn't realize. I would have thought that was like more of a Hawaiian or an Islander thing.
Hitting the beach, buddy. Hitting the beach.
But I will say, like, I was speaking with my dad and my brother. So my parents got together for an outdoor walk to enjoy the good weather, go see my little nephew, and ledge grounds are always a great walk here in Edmonton. So, unbeknown to them, that there was going to be a rally. So they showed up there, caught wind of what was going on, decided that it was probably good to avoid the area, and departed fairly quickly. But one of the interesting things that I didn't really realize, and my brother was saying that my sister-in-law was talking to one of the cops there, and she was kind of inquiring, what's going on here? Why there's so many people? Why there's signs? And my brother was saying that there was a lot of diverse signs, a lot of things that, like, weren't related to, say, white nationalism, but Black Lives Matter, pro-Israel, Aboriginal rights, anti-mask stuff. And the cop was effectively telling my sister-in-law that, yeah, the thing is whenever these groups announce that they're going to be doing their walk and going to be doing their gathering on the ledge grounds, everyone catches wind of it, and anybody with a cause runs down there with their group. And then, so instead of like anti-mask / white nationalism versus love and wear a mask, it's actually like 12 groups competing for any coverage at this event. And
there's going to be a TV camera there. Yell up whatever you want.
Well, that's exactly it.
I like pizza.
I had never thought that's how it would boil down. I just assumed it was like, oh, well, I don't like that group, so I'm going to go counter protest. And I thought that's how it went. No, apparently, if you hear that there's going to be a camera, go down with your cause.
And watching the news that night, and unfortunately I had it on, and I had to turn it off quite quickly because my daughter was watching with pretty wide eyes, and she's like, "What is that? I like that. I want to watch that." I'm like, "No, turn the channel now." But you could tell there was definitely like an alt-right representation and then an alt-left, so it wasn't going to be good. There was only one arrest. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Well, I think it's funny that, like, whenever they show the coverage, like, they did show a shoving match take place between two older gentlemen and a cop, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm pretty relaxed at my age. I can't imagine getting to a shoving match in public nowadays. So,
yeah, I can't imagine going down to the ledge grounds. I'd have to really be moved in a certain way to go and have my wife get pushed over by another group and then yell at a cop that's my wife. That's my wife. And I'm like, yeah. I don't think they care that's your wife. She obviously did something stupid.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, I love when people are surprised when the cops round them up or somebody punches somebody in the face for yelling something obscene at them. It's just like, I can't believe this. It's like, come, give me a break.
This is appalling.
Yeah.
Appalling.
I would like to switch gears though into something that really did bother me in the last couple of days, and I think most people have seen the news because it's been well circulated now that the Canadian government put into a vote whether or not China was, committing genocide against their Muslim population at their re-education camps. And for those who can't see me, I used quotation marks there. But it's one of those things that, like, one, Canada wants to be a world player on this planet. We want to be a leader in regards to climate change, human rights, regardless of your personal beliefs on where those things kind of go. Because let's face it, the political spectrum is wide. But we want to be proud of our country's efforts on the world stage. And I will admit, I was very annoyed with the idea that Trudeau had pulled his members out for that vote and left it to pretty much everybody else, and then his non-cabinet ministers or non-cabinet members of parliament to vote on it. And it was unanimous. And I think based upon the information that's flowing out of that area and what people are getting in regards to that, it's very apparent that even if you, like, I know it's about labeling it genocide, but there's a clear issue a human rights issue that's taking place in China. And I can't imagine a world where Canada wants to be a world leader on that and, acknowledge our own sins when it comes to our Aboriginal population, comment on what the Americans are going through, what Western Europe has done, colonialism, and then just, no, we're going to try to turn a blind eye to what's going on when it comes to potential genocide. So I was very irritated after that, after they put that vote. So.
Wow. Why are you upset? Are you upset that Trudeau is being hypocritical in this stance? Is he, not addressing the issue, or is there a bigger issue at hand that are we potentially in the back pocket of China?
Well, I think there's enough evidence out there that obviously the I'm going to say the Liberal Party, but it's the Canadian government for the most part, because the Conservatives didn't stand up to China before Trudeau got in, and I would say the Western world doesn't really have a good track record with standing up to China in regards to what dirt we think they're throwing out there. But yeah, no, I do. I think there's a concern in regards to, money flowing into the party. I think there's concerns in regards to saving face. I don't think it's going to be lost on anybody that with the Biden Trudeau call that they had yesterday, and then Biden steps up to the mic and pretty much names the two Canadians and says that, human beings aren't bargaining chips. But it's just like, once again, and this is the disappointment I have, is that Canada needs Big Brother to step in finally again and maybe have our backs. Because let's face it, we are toothless against a country like China. And that bothers me as well.
There's only 30 million of us, brother.
Well, it's just one of those. No, but I was thinking about this because it's easy to sit here and go like, oh, I'm annoyed and I'm frustrated by this type of stuff. But we do have buying power. And Saskatchewan correspondent Bo was discussing this when he talks about where he gets his news. And I said to him, like, good for you. You choose where you get your news from. You're using your dollar to enhance an organization and potentially take away from another by not subscribing to their news feed. But as a population, we could turn a blind eye to buying products made out of China. But we're never going to do that. And that's another frustration for me. So it's just like, I don't know.
Our lives are too intertwined now with products coming from that country. And essentially, most of the mass produced products in the world are coming from China, right? So, you can't go to a Walmart or a Costco or anywhere, without getting products from China. Your shirt's probably made in China. You're wearing a beautiful Under Armour sweater. It's probably made in a Chinese factory somewhere.
I'll try to rip off my sweater later to check it out. But no, I put money down that you're right. No, but that's just it. It's just like, and I know people argue against the global economy, but we're so deep into it that what are you supposed to do? So I think my frustration boils down to, one, not, having a strong stance on something that's, a pretty barbaric situation that's going on. But then not really having a way of fixing it, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, there really is no solution coming forth, right? So everybody's just, coming up and fighting the cause now and stepping on this, bandwagon, other than the Trudeau Liberal government. But it even impacts, even the sporting world, which we love. Is the Winter Olympics are planned for Beijing in 2022. I don't see too many athletes stepping up saying, I'm going to boycott the games. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? Maybe it's a good thing that they do go and they voice their opinion while they're there, but it's a communist country, and I'm sure they'll be censored when they do get there. So I don't know. It's an interesting topic, and it was kind of shameful to watch a Canadian government that's in power, the Liberals that are currently in power, kind of play this political theater with Canadians, and not stand up for the people. Because I think the majority of people, if they understood what was going on, like I said, I was only educated on this a couple weeks ago on the last political rodeo we had with our Saskatchewan correspondent. But yeah, and I've now been brought up to speed, and I'm now, like yourself, appalled and kind of, disappointed in some ways that our government would not step up to the plate and at least do the right thing.
Yeah, like I'll leave it at this. I understand that not every country wants to, be a leader in the world when it comes to having the best human rights on the planet. And if we're going to shine the mirror on ourselves and we're going to acknowledge the sins of our history, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. There's important lessons to be learned there. But I will say, though, too, is that we get to shine it outwards as well. People have done it to us. People are doing it to America. It's a worldwide thing now. This is what it is.
I like it.
Excellent.
I like it when Geoff gets serious about topics, and yeah, it was good. That's a good one to bring up. There's better things to talk about, obviously, as we close up the current events section of this episode, because our favorite topic, the Edmonton Oilers, are currently destroying the North Division.
Did they buy a UFO?
No, that's the topic du jour.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. Yes. Yes, the Oilers are absolutely wrecking the North Division minus Toronto, and we'll see how those 3 games play out. But
and I'm super pumped about those 3 games. I'm super pumped. You got to think about it. Cassie Campbell Pascal comes out last week or this week and says Austin Matthews is a more complete player than Connor McDavid, and he's actually surpassed him. Those were her exact words.
I didn't hear that, but that's a controversial take, in my opinion.
That's pretty bold, Cassie Campbell Pascal.
I like how you full named her. It's just Cassie.
What's the freaking name, man?
I know. No, but that's a bold. Like, don't get me wrong. Even if I wasn't an Oilers fan, it's like, oh, Crosby. Well, there's been plenty of players better than Crosby. What are you talking about? Crosby's been phenomenal for his whole career.
So here's my take, is that these 3 games are actually going to mean something. There's been a kind of a back and forth with Matthews and McDavid, not in the media, not in the public eye, but on the ice with how they've been playing. Matthews comes out, has a fantastic Saturday night. I think he got a hat trick.
4 points, yeah.
Or 4-point night. McDavid just comes out and throws a hat trick and a 5-point night on the board. Like there's that alpha dog in McDavid. He doesn't come out and show it, in the media and the public eye. But when he steps on that ice, and you kind of see glimpses of it every once in a while, he did it last night too, when he scored that goal. He was pretty jacked. Like, yeah, he usually, when he scores a goal, he acts like he's done it before. Lately, though, he's coming out a little bit, and he's like saying, yeah, you know what? I'm the best player in the world. Stop bringing up other people. I'm going to prove you mother effers wrong. So
I do like the act as if approach. It's just like,
no, I don't like that at all.
See, I think once again, it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, I'm so big, I don't care about these simple things. I'll celebrate my Stanley Cup win.
No,
or my 50 goals. So
no,
but But I will say though too, McDavid said he didn't know that Austin Matthews got 4 points on that Saturday before he went on the ice. I call BS on that. He knew.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah,
he knew
bullshit.
it.
They
He
have
knew
the
what he was
game on.
doing. Yeah.
They have the game on the room. And you know what? No, you celebrate like you've never done it before. Friggin' Tyler Ennis scored the winning goal last night. Friggin' puck went off one guy and then one off his leg into the net. He did the old ice drag with the glove and the big time celly, getting the go ahead goal.
Getting
Yes.
getting a potential game winning goal is different than just getting your 4th point of the night. Like,
Nope.
yeah, it is. No, act as if.
I want McDavid going Timo Solani style, throwing the glove up in the air and shooting it down like duck hunt, buddy.
Yeah, but he didn't do that 62 times in a season when he like wrecked the league in his rookie year.
That's all I remember of him.
He did it once. That's the thing.
Yeah,
he did it once.
That's all I remember of him. I don't even know where he played after that.
Oh, come on.
I know.
Bullshit. Come on. Don't give me that. Anyways, all right. So those look really good. Obviously, we're enjoying that. What do you got?
Oilers are doing good. Probably in the next episode, we're going to have a Battle of Alberta uptick here because we're recording on Wednesday, not March, it's February still. Jesus. February 24th. I'm getting ahead of myself, but next week there will be some more Battle of Alberta action. So maybe we'll dive a little deeper into the Battle of Alberta and have some fun with that. But yeah, I know Oilers are killing it. We're pumped. Hopefully you're pumped, Canadian lads, while watching the this North Division. Tons of good hockey. Every night's a must watch TV, other than Geoff, who went to bed before the end of the game last night.
I was gonna say not to poo poo your point, but I went to bed. But
why would you do that?
Because it's an 8 o'clock start.
Why would you, Geoff? Are you even a fan?
I'm a wonderful fan.
Yeah, you're a friggin' season ticket holder. Why did you would you go to bed would you leave the rink early if there was a game night and you racked the game and it was an 8 o'clock start?
No, I wouldn't, but I would have sold those tickets actually. And also it's in Vancouver, so I can't sell tickets in Vancouver. No, I've mentioned many times I am old and lame and I'm in bed early so I can get up early. So that's why I went to bed.
All right, let's segue here into the topic of the day, not the topic du jour. There's more to talk about. Maybe we'll touch on one little tidbit of the topic du jour, which is the UFO paranormal activity stuff that's going on in the world. Maybe we'll touch on that at the end of the episode, but let's get on with it here. The pandemic, the retrospective of what's gone on over the last year. So just to kind of give everybody an idea here. So you're obviously living through the pandemic. All of our listeners, or the listener, will never know how many people are actually listening, but pretty exciting stuff. We're coming up on a year from when shit just went haywire, right? You know, everything's getting ready. 2019 ended, 2020's, starting off strong. Everybody's excited, not a lot of talk about the virus coming over to North America. In the news, you're seeing, wow, China's building these mega hospitals in Wuhan, China, in like days. I wonder what's going on with that. That's crazy. And then, bam, the first cases start rolling out. And I think, when they do documentaries, in the near future on this, because there will be documentaries, and we'll have to do a doc club episode on the pandemic documentary when it does come out. But when this comes out, I think the big kind of shift for people, I think in North America, or when professional sports stopped, and it was a Wednesday night in March when the NBA stopped, and there was chatter about other sports leagues and things like that. And I know, Geoff, you were at the Oilers game. They were playing the Winnipeg Jets, and I think they lost that game actually. But I remember sitting there and saying to my wife, I'm like, oh my God, they just like shut down the NBA. And I'm sure you were in the arena getting like Twitter feeds and news stories come out you, probably real time while you're at the game. And you're like, holy crap, like they might actually like suspend the season like on this night, like right after the game. And they did.
Yeah, it was wild. Like obviously, like my brother and I were checking our checking our internet and seeing what was going on. The NBA had shut down, and that was news. The best update I got though was we were in line to go to the washroom in the second period, and we're like, "Holy crap, that's nuts!" That the NBA went down. Dude in front of us turned around and said, "Tom Hanks has it." That was the best
You know what? The best story I have for being in a bathroom lineup is at the Grey Cup a couple years ago, and I was at the game with a buddy Darren from our old workplace, and we're up. He comes back to the seat, and he's like, "Hey, I had a real interesting story. The bathroom was all lined up, and I yelled." "Hey, what? Did somebody die in there?" And some guy leaned over and was like, "Oh yeah, some guy just had a heart attack and died."
Yeah.
So it was like biggest foot in your mouth situation of all time.
I will admit, I was talking with some friends about what are the worst sports fans out there, and I will admit, Oilers fans are pretty rough. And if you ever wanted evidence of that, you go to the washroom at one of the games. So,
yeah. Stand in that line for the urinal. It's a real fun entertainment.
But so you had mentioned in the intro that this is a situation of grit. Are we gonna gut this out? Are we gonna be better for it at the end? And I think it begs the question. So based upon what you've seen and what you've experienced, which way are we heading?
Okay, so let's just lay it down as it is. This is 2021, 2020 grit. Like, this is 21st century grit. This isn't World War II grit. We're not plunging bayonets in the chests of Nazis. We're staying home, watching Netflix, and being affected on all sorts of levels, right? So our lives have changed. So it's a different style of grit, but if anything, it is making us harder people. I think stronger people, and that's the theme. Hard defines greatness. Going through hard times together should define a greater generation coming out the other end, right?
So let me challenge you on that a little bit, because I'm not going to toot my own.
No, you can't challenge me.
I'm going to do that at work tomorrow. Hey Geoff, no, not answering any questions. Anyways, as a generality, I don't believe society was getting tougher. We discussed on previous podcasts about how we've acknowledged mental health more, which is a good thing. But for the most part, I feel that we use excuses as a generality in regards to how we're going to go about our lives and what we hide away from. So I do believe there's been an increase in victim mentality.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, and that kind of ties into one of the topics that you brought up in our synopsis breakdown today. Kind of leaning into more of the Jordan Peterson thing, right? Of getting your house in order before you go and criticize the world, right? And I think that's probably what you're leading into here.
Well, a little bit. I'm gonna semi toot my own horn a little bit, and I know a family and friends with this, and this ties into why I went to bed during the game yesterday. But I'm very regimented and I'm going to say disciplined, but I'm not super disciplined. But I do have a schedule to my life, and I do very much follow that, and I don't deviate away from it. As a result, I annoy my wife with times I'm like, I got to go to bed at this time. I got to be out of this house at this time, blah, 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 blah. But because of that, when it came to changes that were brought on by COVID, I didn't really experience a great deal of it. You flourished during COVID. Nobody flourishes. Well, some people did. The stock people are GameStop stocks flourished for a few minutes, but as a result, I didn't really adjust my schedule. I still got up at the same time. I still worked out at the same time. I still ate the same breakfast, went to work, applied myself the same way. And then at the end of the day, I was tired, fell asleep. And as a result, I didn't probably get hit by the wave of stress that other people did. And I do think there is kind of a little bit of don't think too much when it comes to that, to a certain extent. And this is kind of a Jordan Peterson topic, is that this is like, don't focus on the exterior, focus on the interior. And if you continue to work on that, you can ignore the things around you to a certain extent. And just by enhancing yourself and getting better, you might actually make everything else around you a little bit better. And that's maybe the best path to do it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, right? It took me a while during the pandemic to kind of get my head around it, but I always wanted to battled weight throughout my life, but I wanted to get back on track and, you know, kind of focused in on that, right? Is being disciplined, watching, what I was eating, getting on a regimented plan and sticking to it, right? And you're 100% right. Like it does allow you to kind of focus in on things, become more positive, be more rested, be more, alert and all that kind of good stuff. But it's all tied, to, if we look at this hard defines greatness, like I said, I don't have the answers at the beginning of this, right? I would hope that we come out stronger, but at the end of the day, I think we are going down a road where, we're still the most sensitive generation of all time, and maybe that will get us in hot water for saying that, but we're so sensitive as a as a society. You'd hope that coming through this, battle together, that we'd kind of get things back on track and, start loving each other again.
Well, in regards to being unfeeling, I very well might be on the spectrum, so who knows? But I do believe there, like, don't get me wrong, like, there's circumstances beyond our control, and I'm not discounting that, or at least I don't want to be perceived as discounting that. Like, if you're rolling out of college right now and you're like, hey, I've been working hard, I've got my grades, I'm going to go out there and get rid of the student debt and start my career. Well, your 20s are already a difficult time in your life. Affording things is difficult. Typically, you're renting and sharing with roommates and other people. You and I both did the exact same thing. That's how we start our independent lives effectively. And this is another hurdle to overcome on that. But I will say that the lessons that I learned young in regards to that type of stuff was, hey, you got to start putting money aside. You got to start diversifying where your income could possibly come from. And you got to focus on just, hey, straightforward, things might not come to you in a month, but they might come to you in a few years. And I think that's lessons that can be learned around here. So the example I wanted to use was that it's tough running a restaurant. And I feel for people who put their their financial lives on the line when it comes to, this is my dream, I really want to own this. And then you get knocked to the ground with COVID. Now, I'm not saying everyone's got additional disposable income after opening a restaurant, but, potentially it's like, did you meet with your financial advisors? Did you guys discuss how to potentially, hey, can we get an income stream coming from somewhere else? Do I operate a farm while operating a restaurant, which has been known to happen in Edmonton? It's these things where you have to kind of plan ahead in order to kind of get ahead of this type of stuff. And I don't want to sound like I'm lecturing people, but if you didn't do that before, learn that lesson now.
Well, the problem is, though, most of the small business owner, every day there's a new restaurant shutting down or somebody trying to sell off of what they have, right? It's a lot of people are not going to come out of this, and it's really sad, to kind of watch. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody could have predicted a scenario of this magnitude in regards to the financial piece, Geoff. Like, I think that's something you can't plan for.
Yeah, but how many small businesses fail in the first 3 years of their starting anyways?
Shitty ones fail.
No, that's not true at all. Circumstances affect everybody all the time. But, like, I'm going to throw out a stat and say, like, 75% of small businesses fail in the first 3 years. I'll just say, like, walking around downtown Edmonton, how many restaurants that you have known that have been there for a long period of time, pre-COVID, just disappear one day? Because that's what happens with small business.
Yeah, small businesses fail all the time. So I guess that's that. Geoff, let's move on from this topic. I want to ask you a question more personally about the pandemic, and maybe something you took away from it. What are the little things that you maybe more appreciate now than you did before? And, what was something unique that you kind of took away from this pandemic and did during it? And you'll probably do more of going into the future.
Well, I think I would probably kind of wrap it up with saying, like, there's became more of an appreciation for the smaller things that you get to enjoy in your day-to-day life. Like, admittedly, I wasn't somebody who would go out for a walk very often. In the neighborhood I live in, there's a great trail system and a great walking system. You can pretty much get around the whole town. by doing so. But I've really starting to really enjoy going out and doing that. Like when everything went kaput back in March, my wife and I made a point of like, hey, regardless of the weather, we're going to go venture outside and enjoy the fresh air and enjoy the sunshine. So that was definitely something that I really enjoyed. So, and yourself, what are some of the things you experienced like that?
This podcast.
This podcast, yes.
Yeah, this podcast obviously is born, like we've said before, from the womb of the pandemic. And no, this podcast is something that I enjoy, and something that's been basically grown out of the situation that we're in. But there are all sorts of things, just spending more time with family. Not traveling as much for work has been interesting. I do miss that. That's been, I guess, a fun part of the job is getting out and traveling all over Canada. But yeah, no, it's been it's affected us all in different ways, and it's just making sure that we can enjoy the small things and work on small things too. We've kind of tied things to the Jordan Peterson's 12 rules of life a little bit in this podcast, but having your house in order before you go and criticize the world. And I know we've we're lightly, we take it lightly when we are criticizing things and we're questioning things on this podcast, but I don't think we're taking hard stances into things in regards to social issues and what's going on in the world these days. And others are. And, I'm actually proud of ourselves in the sense that we're taking more of a lighter approach into things. Maybe that will change if something really, fucking pisses us off.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. Karen pissed me off that one day when they were wearing those masks in that field, and they're giving themselves a big super spreader hugging event. So.
Well, I was gonna say, are you gonna tweet out your proudness of what you've become, much like that individual that you hate on Twitter?
I might have to, and I'm just gonna troll her like crazy now. She doesn't obviously know who I am, but because I deleted my other account. But those Canadian lads will be just questioning her well-being every day. But no.
The entire those Canadian lads nation will be attacking this poor woman soon enough.
Come on, nation, go after. No, don't do that. We don't troll. Plus, I'll never share that name of that person. But there.
Nobody can ever figure it out for something. Yeah. But I want to backtrack a little bit. You did travel quite a bit for business, not necessarily just for pleasure. But when things kind of get back on the right track, do you think that you will be traveling that often again?
Well, no, that's part of the changes, I think, in everyone's business culture, not only working from home, but working remotely and working virtually. You can do your administration, you can do your sales, you can do your operations, pretty much, remotely and virtually. And I think the way business has been done to now has been completely changed. Maybe that's another topic for another podcast on how you can actually be functional and work remotely. I'll give you an example. We're recording this podcast remotely from essentially, kilometers away from each other. And if we wouldn't said anything, I don't think anybody would have picked up on that. Right. So I think the way we do things is completely changed. But it still nothing beats in-person, one-on-one, person-to-person business, right? And relationship building, right? So.
Yeah, there is definitely something to be said about that. But on that same vein, that is kind of one of the other things that I've really seen as a positive in regards to this is obviously you can conduct yourself different at work. But one of the events that I got to virtually attend this month, and it's a great event put on by Kabuki. They're a strength company. Chris Duffin is a powerful deadlifter, very impressive by any measure. But they put on effectively an education week in the fitness community where I got to listen and attend and get lectures, effectively classroom lectures from personal trainers, physical therapists, people who have grown their business out of that, and a bunch of doctors that I respect that even wrote some of the textbooks that I used in school. So had that event not been, put on virtually, I don't think that in my personal life I could have carved out the time required to travel to it and enjoy that in person. So this was definitely one of the benefits I've seen from, people needing to get their virtual world in order to have their business continue going. So no, it's definitely been enjoyable from that standpoint.
I prefer the term "get your virtual shit in order."
Oh, sure, fair enough. Yeah. I
Get
think
your virtual shit together. Get
I
a
think
proper virtual streaming service in line.
I think that could be the response on Twitter or Instagram if somebody writes something rude to you. Like, get your virtual shit together.
I'm proud of myself today. I am a
Mm.
good person. I did good things in the world. I am better off today than I was yesterday.
Yeah, well, I don't think a lot of people could probably say that, at least with
Well,
an earnest face. So
some people say it all the time, and they like to put it out there on the social media. So, yeah, good for them. Good for them for feeling good.
yeah, instead of tweeting that stuff out, I just say on the podcast how I'd like to pat myself on the back and brag about my quote unquote discipline. So.
How much do you lift, Geoff? That's right, he lifts, everybody.
Oh yeah. Actually, funnily enough, I was informing my wife that my numbers are in the basement compared to they once were, and I'm very ashamed of that right now. I got to get back up there. So
it's pandemic times. You're allowed to do things like that.
no,
you just get it back on track.
You got to get back on the path. You got to get there. It's all about effort. It's all about effort.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the little things. It's all about the little things and focusing in on, what you're doing in your life with your family, with the people you care about, and getting your own shit in order before you go and criticize the world. I know there's a lot of crazy topics out there that you can, die on the sword or die on the cross for, but maybe it's more important to focus in on the little things. And I think that's one thing that this pandemic has taught me about, and I hope it's the only pandemic that I ever go through, because I hate using the word pandemic.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. There's obviously lots of important topics to discuss, but keeping it light and going back to the travel thing really quick. We had briefly discussed that engine exploding off the airplane that was going from Denver to Hawaii. What obviously when that happened, the airline had to either put people up in the hotel or say like, "Hey, we got another plane for you to travel off to Hawaii." What would you have done?
There's no way. If I'm sitting in that seat, and I generally have a seat because I don't have frequent flyer points to get better seatage on a plane, but usually I'm on that seat that's looking right at the engine, and I'll be peering out the window, and if that happened to me where the engine blew to bits and was on fire, I don't think you could ever get me on an airplane again. I'd have to drive to Hawaii because there's no way if that happens to me, I'm ever getting on an airplane. And I remember sitting on one of the they call the Air Max, or the ones that kept crashing.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting on one right after those two had crashed and watching a news story on the great iPad video screen that they have built into the seats about them crashing, and that was enough to create some great anxiety in my life. So
see, I think I would have gone the opposite. I would have been like, well, there's no chance that this is going to happen twice in a row, and quite frankly, if it does happen twice in a row, death's coming for me anyways, clearly. So no, I would have just got back on the plane and would enjoyed a beer on the beach shortly thereafter. So
you'd have to have a few cocktails to get on, because that's a pretty butt puckering situation to get onto after. Can you imagine sitting there and like the person who broke out their phone and started videotaping, and that person's like, they're brave as hell, because if you think about it, you'd be calling your loved ones. It's like, we're going down, we're gonna crash.
I think it's one of those things though that it's almost kind of like a self preservation thing. Like if you go distract yourself with like, hey, I'm going to make sure I keep the camera steady on this while I will record the thing, then you kind of like, you're focused on that as opposed to what's going on around you. And that will almost probably keep you sane to a certain extent. It's probably inevitably a really good move on that person's part, so that they were able to kind of, observe the moment without being pulled into the moment almost.
I'm gonna record this for history.
Wow. It's like, well, truth be told, what else are you going to be supposed to be doing on a plane? You just sit there anyways, thumbing your ass. You might as well.
Calling your loved ones, taking the airplane mode off, and be like, so mom and dad are on a plane right now, and the engine just exploded. I don't want to worry you guys, but we might not be coming home.
I would just be like, I'll leave it a mystery if anyone knew I loved them or not. It'd just be here.
I want to assume that I was screaming frantically up and down the aisles, freaking out.
I would just strap on that oxygen mask. It's supposed to make you high or at least calm you down. I would just be like, whatever. It's like,
give me the gas.
Yeah, just be like, whatever. It's fine. I'll see what's on the other side. So.
No, man, it's been a wild and crazy year, and the things that that come out of it truly are the little pleasures in life, the simple things. I think it's cool that you've been able to get educated the way you want to be educated from the things that you're interested in virtually, and not have to travel across North America to get it right. I think that's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, no, I obviously I got to really enjoy it, but obviously it's different than the children being stuck in virtual school or that being uprooted and all of that. But no, but it was no, it was definitely a good opportunity to be able to get information, attend events. Hey, let's face it, the same thing's going on in the movie theater. Like if going to a movie is great. It's not necessarily something you can do every night. But if hey, it's available on whatever streaming platform and it's a new release, hey, you can just watch it at home. It's sometimes, and quite frankly, everyone's TV is better than it ever had been. So you might get the theater quality experience without having to leave the house.
Yeah, no, that is there, but it's those are the things I miss is, getting in groups of people. There's nothing like, watching a comedy in a theater and hearing people laugh, and you're not a sociopath because you're laughing at the same things, or you're laughing at moments that I shouldn't have laughed at that moment.
No, I like those moments when you burst out laughing and nobody else does. It's usually when a child gets hurt or something. You just start laughing.
Those Canadian Lads podcast. We laugh at kids falling down.
Oh, come on. Everyone loves watching a video of a kid biffing it off something and just going King Cobra, rolling on top of themselves. Everyone enjoys that.
Well, I think that's a good segue. Just, if anything this is done, this is, I think, long-term affecting children in regards to the pandemic. I think it's going to socially impact them in regards to how they interact with others going into the future. Agree or disagree, Jeffrey?
You want my educated opinion on this?
Give me your educated opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably just go with the time will tell, of course. I don't think there's any way that kids aren't going to be a little bit affected by it. Maybe some confidence issues, maybe some, just social awareness. I think things like that are going to be affected. But, I think I've said it before. Kids are resilient. I think that much like any one of us, they're going to get themselves out of that eventually, and maybe they'll continue on their lives as if nothing had happened. But I think in the acute response, there's going to be things that have to be dealt with. Of course, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, being a father of two right now, in the moment, I find that it is affecting them.
You might not be a father in another moment.
I don't know. They might disown me. I hate your podcast.
Yeah, you embarrass me.
Yeah. No, they're being affected by it. It's interesting to watch the little one in her kindergarten program be, I guess, oversensitive when she's not allowed to play with other kids at different tables. They're separated in tables, and she takes it personally when she thinks that somebody doesn't want to play with her. And it's just having that freedom to kind of roam and flow and interact and socialize with people who are outside of your essential table. I think that is causing some concern, and just having get-togethers with other little kids, and building friendships and things like that, and not going to organized sport and having all that to access. I think it's impacting these kids for sure. not only it's impacting their ability to, I wouldn't say be active, because you can still go outside, you can still go run around in a field, go sledding, go skating, things like that. But it comes down to, developing skills and developing social skills. We've played on team sports growing up and know the benefits of, working on a team and, knowing what your role is on that team and being part of achieving a goal together, right? When you talk about hard defines greatness, you should, at a young age, I believe, experience winning and losing together within groups. And I think it'll make you a better person, down the road in life as you get into whatever career field you want to go into. So
Yeah, you actually, like, soon as you started speaking about that, my thoughts immediately went to loss of team atmosphere that comes from not being able to go through being able to play organized sports. You and I have both played organized sports most of our young lives, and there's lessons you get from that along the way. Admittedly, whether it was whatever sport I was playing, I was effectively a defensive plug. Like, I was never going to go anywhere with any of it,
I love to
but
talk. I was a bit of a chatterbox.
actually, I wasn't really. I didn't do any trash talk. I just kind of, I would make sure that somebody knew I was there, like with a shoulder or an elbow. But other than that, but no, I think that, like, you're right. There's valuable lessons that will be lost upon kids, or that'll be stifled by the fact that there's a couple years of organized sports that are lost. And one of the most valuable lessons, and this may speak to the teams I was on, but learning how to lose is an important lesson. You got to learn how to emotionally deal with that. You got to accept it sometimes. But if you don't lose, and you don't look back and look at the lessons that caused that loss, you can't self-improve, or you can't improve as a team.
And that's business 101. I think, that's the one thing that, they didn't teach you in school, when you were learning about business and leadership and all that. It's you need to experience, you got to be before you become. And that goes back to the theme of the podcast, essentially, is hard defines greatness. You got to experience hard with people before you become great. And that's kind of where, going into the whole societal change, are we going to continue to be, oversensitive, um, kooks? Are we gonna are we gonna cancel everything out, and everything that is bad in the world obviously is bad and all that? But are we gonna ignore the bad and just only focus on the good, or learn from the bad and make ourselves better? So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm going at it with this, is that hard defines greatness. We can be a great society coming out of this. We just need to learn to go down the right path and be less politicized when we go forward.
Yeah, I think before I give my final judgment on what is going to happen out of society with the pandemic, are we going to in fact be great after going through a hard time? Yeah, that's it. If you don't test your metal, then you never know how soft or hard you're going to be. Unfortunately, it's the adversity in our lives that show our true character and what we're capable of and how we can go about it. I was listening to a nurse talk about how with COVID, obviously she's on the front lines, different experience than my own, but she was effectively saying, like, well, death isn't even the worst thing that can come from this. And yeah, there's going to be health concerns that come from COVID. But one of the things that immediately popped in my head was, people get injured and severely sick all the time. And then so yeah, there's things that are insurmountable. If you have a widowmaker heart attack, you're not going to go run a marathon because you're dead. But but there's been stories of plenty of individuals who lose a leg, whether for whatever reason, and then they go run a half marathon. They don't say that this injury or this illness is going to define who I am, and they push back against it. So you can sit there and sulk and kind of go, well, yeah, we're never going to bounce back from this, and well, what are we going to do, and blah 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 blah. But you can look at it and go, like, hey, listen, you got through it on the other side. Maybe have all your toes and fingers, hopefully you do, but it's an opportunity for you to go prove that it didn't prevent you from doing what you wanted to do in life.
I like it.
Yeah.
You took it on a positive road, Jeffrey. That was awesome.
Yeah. As I'm about to, and then render my final judgment. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, to kind of take it down a negative road as well, and agree to disagree with me, but I think one of the real the real part of this disease is not the actual people dying of COVID. I think it's going to be the mental health implications that people are going through right now. I'm interested to see. I hope it doesn't increase, but I'm guessing that it is going to increase the number of suicides, the domestic abuse, divorce, all these implications of this pandemic that, from a social impact, from a mental health impact, I think that's going to be skyrocketed numbers, and it's going to cause a lot of problems going down the road. You already see it with crime, the amount of, crime going on in our society, right? Because people either are out of work and need to provide for their families. Like your brother's business was robbed. A small business owner, was robbed, all of his tools and equipment, and bloody shame. But somebody out there obviously needed it to sell it, so they're going to try to get it no matter what. And it's not right, but it is happening. So.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives in Drayton Valley, and for all of our non-Alberta listeners, that is the definition of a buttfuck town in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing there, but it was an oil hub. And when that kind of dissipated out of there, when talking with my friend, he'd be like, "Yeah, there's break-ins every single night. There's always something going on," and that's what, unfortunately, people turn to in desperate times. I would like to believe that it's people on their last straw, kind of going like, I got to go do this, even though I know it's wrong. But yeah, regardless, it does happen.
No, for sure. So I think we're going to see a spike, obviously, in that kind of, crime and suicide and all the other, examples that I gave that are going to be really obviously disappointing, and hopefully, people can kind of overcome that challenge in life. But I definitely think that's totally a root of what's happening with the pandemic. And get that needle in people's arm. The 75 pluses are getting in line today. I can already see the complaining starting that the government's not doing enough.
Yeah, going back, the psychiatrists and psychology students of the future there'll be entire textbooks written about what this did to people's mental well-being and how they reacted. Like you said, the evidence is already there. There's domestic abuse issues coming to a head. There's violence. There's petty crime. It will be very interesting how this settles out, and maybe there'll be a overcorrection in the positive afterwards. But yeah, no, as I said, for the kids coming up nowadays who decide to turn to psychology or psychiatry, whether it's via treatment or become one of those professionals, man, you're gonna have so much information to digest that comes from this. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
And a lot of clients. Maybe a good
and probably a lot of clients, yeah. But yeah, no, we'll see where it shakes out. Obviously, it's hard to predict the future because you could be shocked by things that you thought was going to happen. As I said, I'm very Hobbesian. I don't have a lot of faith in humanity and people as a general statement. I think individuals are capable of greatness, but I think when you kind of go as a giant group and you identify yourself as a giant group, whether it be sub-segments of society or society as a whole, I don't see a lot of greatness there. And I think that's what we're going to continue down the path of. So,
well, I think our friends at the legislature that we spoke about earlier proved that over the weekend. Thank you for showing us the best of society. Everybody who showed up over the weekend to make a beautiful day ugly at a nice spot. But yeah, good times. Before we move on and close out for the evening, I do want to touch on something, Jeffrey. I sent this to you. It was the United Airlines pilot who now nobody's saying that this didn't happen, and they're not trying to disclose it. But our topic du jour on Those Canadian Lads podcast, the du jour topic, UFO paranormal. What are your thoughts on the pilot seeing a cruise-like missile-type cylindrical object flying above a plane. And before I let you speak, they're not flying missiles in lanes of planes. So I'm just going to say that.
Oh, absolutely. The listener can't see you, but I love the constant quotation marks while you're describing what
I can't
happened.
wait to get
Like,
video so you guys can see us deliver this podcast. There's a lot of animated discussions going on, but back to the topic
yeah.
du jour.
You know what, this is potential to be a redo of the Chicago airport incident, in which that there was individuals who came forward as witnesses, and as a generality, no information came out of it other than individual interviews, with the acknowledgement from the airline. And I believe it's the FBI that is launching their own investigation about this as well. Regardless of what it turns out to be, is it a UFO? It is a UFO. It's unidentified. Whether it's alien in nature or something that's been man-made, it's definitely very interesting. And the photos that have been taken about this, the object itself, it's it's pretty impressive. I gotta say, like, don't get me wrong, I know this is always a Google me right, and I love to get more evidence of something I already believe in, but yeah, no, depending on how this shakes out, it could become the correction of the Chicago incident, and we actually get a lot of information out of it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, the Chicago incident, and there's a fantastic podcast. I'm gonna actually share it on our Twitter feed. It was done this summer. It was a rehash of the Chicago O'Hare UFO incident, and it's a great listen. But this specific situation, you can't refute it. It happened, and United Airlines is not refuting it. The FBI isn't refuting it. It wasn't picked up on radar. There are things fly. I'm not saying they're extraterrestrial or anything like that. There are things though in our airspace throughout Earth, just not North America, that are showing up, and people are seeing them. And it's going to be interesting to see what this congressional report, only 4 months away, the United States Congressional Report on UAPs is coming out. I was listening to another podcast last night, actually. Marco Rubio, senator out of Florida, was talking about it. He's one of the leads of this congressional report as well, and they're just worried. There's things flying over military installations that they don't know what they are. As an American citizen or a North American citizen, I would be concerned. And there's sightings in Canada all the time as well. So it's something that obviously we've gotten. But going back to the pandemic retrospective, this is something that I have obviously got more intrigued in through this last year, and obviously in the last year, during 2020, the U.S. government released the Pentagon videos of the Tic Tac UFO. David Fravor, very well respected Black Ace pilot on the Nimitz, USS Nimitz aircraft carrier, very vocal. More and more military people are coming out. These people are observed. They observe trained eyes that are out there, and they see things. And I think in our lifetime, I don't think it's going to be in our lifetime. I think it's going to be in the next 2 years, 3 years, that they're going to come out and say, yeah, there are things out there that we don't know what they are. And with the science out there, with Perseverance, Mars lander, if there is microbial life on Mars, who's to say that there isn't, intelligent life out there as well? So it's going to be interesting to see.
It'll definitely be interesting. I unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be a couple of years. I think we'll maybe get a dump of what the government knows, and as I said, I'm skeptical of that, even with the new administration. But I don't think we have the answers necessarily as the human race. We probably there's probably something out there just because the universe is too vast for there not to be. But yeah, I don't think we'll have answers at the end of it. We'll just probably get a recap of where we are on it, and probably won't get all the information we want about it. But it's obviously, like, there's things taking place. I'm going to divert it just a little bit, but still on the kind of same subject. But we can be very sure of what we think exists or doesn't exist in the world, and obviously science proves things differently. evidence comes forward of other things. And my wife and I are watching the Hotel Cecil documentary on Netflix.
Oh man, yeah, that looks creepy as hell. Like,
Well,
how's that going?
they do a great job of it. We're not done it yet, but it's a 4 episode. Each one's about an hour, give or take. But it focuses on the Elisa Lam disappearance in L.A.
Is she a Canadian woman?
She was from Vancouver, so
Okay.
she disappears. And then about 2 weeks later, they find her in the water tower of the Cecil Hotel. The hotel itself has been a hotbed for death, suicide. It's right on Skid Row in LA, so there's a heavy drug presence and homeless population around it. From the paranormal side, it's also quote unquote a hotbed of haunted activity. So a lot of paranormal investigators try to go get in there. The Ghost Adventures crew got in there because they had shut it down effectively, so they got to do a special on it, which I haven't watched. I want to watch it.
But when you're investigating something and your name is like the Ghost Adventures, it's
Yeah.
like
there's one.
We want to be credible. Let's become the Ghost Adventures.
There's a team of they're called the Ghost Brothers.
Oh
But
god.
of course of course. Anyways, I just of course a nail on the head. But my point being, and we can talk about that documentary another night. But one of the things from it though is that they take a very police approach on it, which is the right way of going about the documentary. This was a missing person who's found. What is the evidence of a crime taking place? But they do kind of touch on the paranormal aspect very briefly on it, and kind of like what I was talking with my wife was, hey, you can only be so certain of everything going on. Sometimes we do get evidence to the contrary that there is something going on here. And much like the UFOs, if you just want to say, no, there's no chance of it ever existing, well, there's things coming forward. Maybe don't always take an absolute response on everything.
Well, and that goes, you can't sit back and say there's no UFOs. The U.S. government's admitted there are things in their airspace that they do not know what that they are. They could be it could be technology developed by an advanced civilization in our planet. It might be something else. We don't know what it is. So it's a proven fact now. It's not it's not crazy people talking. It's not those Canadian lads sitting there. It's like, did you hear about the UFOs? Did you hear about them? No, it's real. So check it out, man. It's so interesting. Listener, dear one listener, check it out.
I think that one dear listener did put out a Twitter vote. Do you believe in ghosts or UFOs more? So yeah, he is listening.
Our polls are not working.
Oh. Anyways, before we wrap it up for the evening, any parting words, Brad?
Yeah, no, the parting words, it kind of goes back to what we wanted to talk about tonight is the pandemic retrospective. Everything we kind of spoke on today really ties into that, but hard defines greatness. Am I hopeful that will come out of this on the back end after everybody gets the Pfizer, Moderna vaccine twice in us? Are we going to come out a better group? I don't know. I'm just seeing there's just too much goofiness in the world nowadays. I don't think we're gonna just continue to criticize ourselves to death. I feel as a society, I feel like we're just soft and we're going to pick apart every little thing. Even today, the government's rolling out 75 plus. People are logging in, and of course, people are already complaining, and criticizing. Well, like we said earlier in the podcast, the government's not going to succeed at anything they really do, 100%. So, pray.
100%.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's good 42% of the time.
I think you're being generous, but yeah.
Yeah. But they've failed at obviously negotiating deals to get the vaccine. Now that the vaccines are rolling in, just go with the flow. Hopefully all of our elderly, vulnerable people get it as soon as possible. And that's where I'm at. I'm hopeful. but I'm not hopeful. So I'm gonna sit on the fence on that one, Geoff, tonight. Maybe my mood will change. Maybe my opinion will change over the next couple months. Maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe it'll be that wave of emotion and people wanting to be more social and get together. Maybe it'll be all this good stuff that will come out of this pandemic. But right now, all I see is just that negativity towards each other, the negativity left versus right, right versus left. It doesn't matter which side you sit on. It's just it's horse poop. It's horse poop, my friend.
Very well put.
And your thoughts, Jeffrey, before we close out those Canadian lads?
Don't really have any. I think we kind of said it all, but no, as I said, like I think that as a generality, these aren't my original words, but I think they sum it up quite good. That during the pandemic, you could either let the time do you, or you could do the time. So it's up to you if you want to try to improve your situation. It's up to you how you want to dedicate your time. Do you want to get creative? Do you want to get more healthy? Do you want to focus on your mental well-being, your emotional state, your friends and family? That's all up to you, man. So whatever you choose to do, time is precious. So go ahead and do it. So that's my final thoughts.
You know what? You just capped off the night. That's a great comment. Let's close it out there.
All right, good night.
All right, listener. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on Those Canadian Lads. Thanks again for listening to Those Canadian Lads podcast. Give us a follow on social media. We're on the Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you like what you heard, give us a follow and share it with your friends. Thanks again, and have a great night.